I am a star. Did you know that, Benjamin? Every atom in my body and yours was once part of a celestial body. There are 2 atoms at the end of this finger from a giant red star that exploded over 1 billion years ago. And before they swirled into that star, they were part of the first sublime explosion from the mind of God. So when I touch your soft, warm cheek, my Father, I touch you with the material of the very beginning. And somehow, each of these atoms wandered alone through an emptiness larger than my imagination, and for a time longer than time remembers. And 42 years ago, 42 years, they came together again, in me, in a molecule of the cell of the fleshy tissue beneath 5 layers of skin, of a finger which touches that cheek and tells you, without words, but with a silent whisper of certainty, that I love you. That speech is from my play, The Gravity of Honey. I wrote it one early, late summer morning, sitting on a lawn, very much in love with the world at the time. And I start with it because it ends the play. It's the culmination of an amazing journey of 2 extraordinarily average people, 42-year-old Honey Leone and 72-year-old Father Benjamin, neither one of whom, through fate, had ever experienced love. But the play builds to the moment of the speech. And when it happens, and I've heard this night after night, the audience exhales. And even though the speech comes at the end of the play, it's the first part of the play that I wrote. You see, I started at the end. Now, it took 2 more years for me to figure out the organic truth of the play, what it was that I was really trying to write about. And I found that while in residence at the MacDowell Colony, one of America's oldest and most venerable artist communities. In the year 2000, I joined a steering committee to raise funds to restore 5 historic seaside buildings for an artist community for Sarasota County to be called the Hermitage. And these are the buildings that we began with, and the way that we found them. This was our beginning. And that we would make these buildings into studio space and living space for artists to come from around the world, for them to create their art alone, but to live together in community. So this was our dream, and it became our vision, our end. We didn't yet know how we would operate. We didn't know where we would find our artists or how we would sustain ourselves. We didn't know our mission, but we did know this one thing, that there was something about this place, something about the feeling of it, the way that it brought peace, and that it lowered tense shoulders. And like the play, it invited you to exhale. Holding on to this vision, we went to work. And by 2005, 4 of the 5 buildings were complete. The easy part was ending, and it was time to find and begin the Hermitage. We had to rescue it from the generic of place and find what was organically true about it as a living organization. So we started with 3 core principles. The first is our small size is our strength. Understanding the limitations of the historic seaside property owned by Sarasota County and leased to us by Sarasota County, we knew we would never be large in terms of the number of artists that we could serve at any one time. We could accommodate 5 or 6 at once. But we knew being small would give us certain advantages and that we would capitalize on those advantages. The second was that we'd be the coolest place that you can't get into. So we eliminated the application process. You couldn't apply to be there. All our artists would be invited. They would receive a letter out of the blue inviting them to come and to work at the Hermitage. And no application meant no administration. So we didn't have a clerical structure. We didn't need a clerical structure to receive, process, and return applications, or a peer panel to evaluate them. And the third was, you're known by the company you keep. We would affiliate with the very best people in each of the different disciplines that we support. If we were going to invite our artists to be here, then the people making those invitations were vital. So we created a very prestigious National Artist Advisory Committee to make the invitations for us. So those three concepts made all the difference. Soon, writers after composers after painters were showing up, writing more than they planned, painting with new and exciting colors, creating new sounds and harmonies that they'd never tried before. No one wanted to leave, and everyone wanted to return. Well, by 2009, we finished the last building. And then, one night, in 2010, just before Christmas, I came home from work at the Hermitage, and I was profoundly moved. We had artists from Australia, from Russia, from Colombia, and from the United States, sharing wine, watching the sunset over the Gulf on a balmy subtropical evening. And then we retired inside where the poets read their poetry to us and to each other and talked about their work and their art. And it dawned on me, we had done it. We had achieved our goal. And I went home that night and I wrote a letter to our trustees and to our major donors and to that National Artists Committee and to our staff, because we actually had a staff by then. And I congratulated them on what they did. All that hard work over all those years had blossomed into the beautiful evening that we had experienced that night. Artists from around the world talking about art, sharing their art, and connecting their cultures. It was a time to exhale. It was an ending and a new beginning. Now, the gravity of Honey begins in a confessional. We've heard the beautiful expression of love for the ending of the play, but the beginning of the play is 9 months before, when Honey Leon breezes into Father Benjamin's confessional on a very undistinguished Friday and says, "Hi, excuse me, it's me, Honey Leon. You don't recognize me? I'm sorry, please begin the usual way. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. How long since your last confession?" That's a tough one. Well, it turns out Honey has had a vision of the future. And she explains that, well, she doesn't understand the vision. Well, she does know that in 9 months, she's a goner. And she tells Father Benjamin that he is in that vision. Well, Father Benjamin doesn't believe in visions, but Honey presses her case. And she says, wait. Not 5 minutes ago, I walk into this church, I look up at that life-size statue of Christ on the cross, and Jesus winks at me. And I don't mean a how you doing wink, or a love the outfit wink, but a see you real soon wink. That statue winked at me sure as I'm kneeling here. And she proceeds to drive him mad. She knows everything about him, the color of his boxer shorts, the kind of deodorant he uses, even his mother's maiden last name. Finally, he says, "Leave." And she says, "Not until I say this. Customer orientation." What does that mean? Well, if you knew anything, you'd know customer service was where it's at. And they wouldn't be thinking about closing this church up. How do you know that? Nobody knows that. Have a nice day. So that's the end of the beginning of the play that sends these two unlikely people out in search of what they discover to be the undeniable proof of God, the revelation of truth. Now, I had my own revelation in 2012 when I went to see Anna Klein and the premiere of her double violin concerto with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra called Prince of Clouds, written entirely at the Hermitage. And then when I went to the Metropolitan Opera in New York City and saw Two Boys, an opera by Craig Lucas and Nico Muhly, written mostly at the Hermitage. And then I went to see a production of Ode to Joy at the Cherry Lane Theater in New York City, a play that the Hermitage commissioned and was written entirely at the Hermitage. You see, my revelation was that the story of the Hermitage does not end at water's edge, nor does it end with the experience of our artists or with our artists reading to each other. Our story ends with you. It ends with an audience. It ends with the thousands of people who will see and hear and read and experience the work created here at the Hermitage. Our story extends all the way to you. Now, I'm often asked where the Gravity of Honey began. And it began when I read an article in the New York Times Magazine section about the renowned English physicist Stephen Hawking. I thought I wanted to write a play about him. But as you've heard, I wrote a play about two very small people looking for the answer to the biggest question and finding it in the most personal of places, in the innocent love between two human beings. The distance I journeyed from Stephen Hawking, the profoundly disabled physicist, about whom I thought I wanted to write, to Honey Leone, the small-time nightclub singer, who muscled her way into my play, is emblematic of the kind of flexible thinking and creative problem-solving necessary to achieve a true organic solution. Same kind of problem-solving we used to create the success of the Hermitage. In creating the Hermitage, we forged our own path. We created an organization that's unique because it's organically true. You see, the Gravity of Honey began at the end. The Hermitage was germinated from three core principles. The creative path is irrelevant. The beginnings and endings of your art, of your work, of your life will lead you to that which is organically true when you set that as your destination. And that path will lead you most often away from convention and into that lonely territory of the creative pioneer. The Hermitage creates safe haven for those lonely pioneers. We've seen over 300 of them arrive with their work and their lives and thrive under the environment that we provide. I know this, and I know the feeling, having the pioneering ambition myself. And we have seen one pioneer after another arrive and have this one experience in common. They stand out on our deck, they cast their eyes out to the Gulf, and exhale. And then they're ready to begin. Thank you.